imagine for your first RPG industry gig, you had to design one of the most iconic creatures in sci-fi cinematic history. That's what we're going to talk about today. Podcasting, getting into the RPG industry, all that and more with my buddy Dave from the Effekt podcast. Stick around. We're coming at you with some Effekt goodness. Hey everyone, welcome to our Wednesday night session. We're just going to sit here and chat a little bit with my friend Dave. You've probably seen him on the show quite a few times. Dave, thank you so much for coming on and chatting with me.
Complete pleasure as always, Doug. It's a delight to come and chat to you. It's brilliant. I love it. Yeah, anytime, frankly.
I really appreciate it. I love everything that you're doing at the Effekt podcast and all the stuff that you're doing. And I'm going to tell folks, if you're a fan of the Effekt podcast and their actual play content and all that, hit that like button down below. And let me know in the comments what your favorite Effekt podcast is or episode is, because they just make a lot of really great content. If you haven't checked out their podcast, I'm going to tell you to go to every single podcast platform that you usually go to and type in Effekt. It's Effekt. It's the Swedish version, right?
The Swedish way. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And and give them a listen and subscribe. And they're just doing some great stuff. So thank you so much, Dave, for coming on. Now we're going to talk about how you went from podcaster to RPG industry icon. Is that what I'm supposed to? Is that what that's right?
That's kind of what I told you to say, like ironically. I think maybe I'm not quite at the icon stage quite yet.
Oh wait, that was Drew that told me I had to call him that.
that doesn't surprise me.
We're going to talk a little bit about your journey from content creator to RPG, freelancer and everything, and what you've got going on at the Effekt podcast. Let's dive right into it. Let's talk a little bit about you, Dave. Tell us a little bit about yourself, because you've been on the show quite a bit. Tell us a little Dave background.
Okay. That's a surprise. I hadn't realized I was going to give a thumbnail about my history, but
So I like to keep you on your toes, my friend.
Fair enough. Sadly, I'm in my 50s now. Just I've been role playing since I was 10. I have my brother Tony, who those who follow the Effekt podcast will at least have heard him, and our YouTube on Mondays you'll have seen him. So thanks to my older brother Tony, I got into role playing D&D back in the day when I was at school, and it went from there. And my co-host with the podcast, Matthew, is again old school friend, known him for 40 odd years, and we stayed in touch and drifted apart and stayed in touch and drifted apart. And as you do as you grow older and your life takes you in different ways, for my day job, I've been a civil servant in the UK for the best part of the last 30 years. Yes, it is as boring as it sounds, and yes, I do hope I can give it up and become a full-time person who earns money out of gaming and game design and writing and stuff. A little way off that yet. I've got my lovely wife is Jenny, Swedish. I've got two sons who are both in their 20s. I've tried to get my wife into role playing. She gave it a go and then hated it. Yeah. Both my boys are big role players. Again, you'll have heard them on the podcast if you've listened in. And I just love role playing, and I love creating stuff. I love letting my imagination run wild.
So what inspired you and Matthew to create the Effekt podcast?
Well, it's partly my fault and a big part Matt's fault.
Okay.
So it's my fault because it was I got us into Free League games. 2016, I think it was. I'd never heard of Free League in my entire life, gaming life. I had gone to a beautiful shop in London, very small, called the Orc's Nest, which is a gaming shop. Just before Christmas, looking for ideas for myself. And I saw this game called Mutant Year Zero, and I thought, well, that looks interesting. I'll give it a try. So I bought it, took it home, gave it to my wife, said, wrap this up, give it to me for Christmas. And then never looked back.
Nice.
shortly after that, the Kickstarter for Coriolis started, and having loved Mutant Year Zero so much and loved the system and the Year Zero engine and everything about it, I said to Matt, you've got to back this because I want you to run it, because I always end up running the games that I want to play, because I see them, I think that's going to be great, I buy it, and then I end up running it as a GM rather than playing it.
Sure.
So Matt picked it up slightly reluctantly at first, I have to say, but I twisted his arm.
Did he say why he was kind of reluctant to pick it up?
I think because he's just a bit of an old geezer who's,
yeah, okay.
So I think he picked it up originally just on the PDF.
All right.
And then he bought a hard copy once he's read it and loved it.
Sure.
And he then, out of the blue, just suggested, why don't we start a podcast talking about Coriolis? Because we both love it. It's great. Yep. There isn't an English-speaking podcast out there at that time, which would have been May 2017, I think, something like that. And we said, yeah, why not? Give it a go. Did one episode. The quality of the recording wasn't great. We were a bit, we were new to it. Matt had done some podcasting, but not much. I was totally new to it, never done it before. Okay. We put it out there. A few people liked it. We did another one. A few more people liked it, and we just went off from there. And it's been, I'm not sure what our sort of total subscribers are. I think we're in the hundreds of downloads for each episode, which is
nice. That's very good.
Absolutely awesome. And so we now have our Patreon, and thank you, Doug, and lots of others are supporting us on that, which is brilliant. It's not like some of them out there, they've got thousands, but we've got a lovely little community of like-minded people building just a really nice group of friends who talk about things that interest us and play a few games together. It's great.
I'm going to tell you that any kind of support for content creators. I'm going to speak personally because I also have a Patreon and
my lovely wife interrupting by delivering me some more beer. So
nice. Hey, where's my wife delivering my wife? I got to tell my wife that's what what happens on these things.
No, she's Swedish, so she understands.
Any kind of support is great because we do this first and foremost because we love these games and we love the community and we love the industry. So even if you can only help $1 a month, it goes a long way for what we do. And I'm just saying that if you do enjoy Matt and Matthew and Dave's podcast, every little bit helps is pretty much what I'm trying to get at.
Absolutely. And there's a number of things that we could not have done without the support of our patrons. Things like we started a separate AP channel, effektap.org, where we put our actual plays. And these are just me, Matt, and our friends around the table, just a bunch of old geezers who've known each other for many, many, many years, playing a game and having fun. And some people seem to enjoy it. It's not particularly slick. It's not if you're looking for a kind of like a stage show version, then you're probably better off going somewhere else, Sweden Rolls or some others. But some people seem to enjoy just listening to a bunch of guys sitting around a table having a good time.
I think that's what what attracted me to when I first tuned in. Not only are you covering a subject matter that I really enjoy with Freely Games and all their, but it's just like when you listen to you and Matthew talk, it's like you're sitting there listening to your buddies you're in your living room and you're just kind of hanging out and you're just talking about different things that you feel like you're one of just another pal sitting there with you and Matthew. So
cool.
It's really comes off really well.
It's very rare that Matt and I can actually wind each other up. But there was one occasion I did. We play tested Destroyer of Worlds, and I did annoy Matthew so much that he rage quit on one of the sessions. So,
oh, really? Did you really?
I did, yeah. Well, not deliberately. No, we were arguing over an Overwatch rule. where he hadn't specified clearly enough what his Overwatch conditions were, and so I wouldn't let him shoot. And he got really upset. And it was late in the day, and it was about, I don't know, 11:30 at night, and he went off. So he paused the session at that point and then started again the next day. So it was fine. It was fine. I'm not quite proud, actually. I haven't pissed Matt off for a very long time. So
I mean, sometimes when you're friends, you got to get to that point, I mean.
Yeah.
So Matthew's actually listening to or watching us. And Matthew says, living room, the pub. Yeah, I know. Although we can't really get to the pub right now with everything going on. So I'm. I usually have my friend, I have one or two friends that come over, every once in a while. And we usually just like hang out in the living room and watch TV or sometimes we talk gaming and stuff too. But how often do you and your friends get together to game?
Well, pre-COVID, there's a small core, which was effectively me, Matt, our old friend from school, Andy, and my brother, Tony. And we would get together every couple of months because we all live quite a long way away from each other. But there's another little story. We used to get together occasionally, and it ended up being maybe once or twice a year. And about, 7 or 8 years ago, I did the very morbid thing of calculating, at this rate, how many more games did we have left before we died?
That was an episode, right? Wasn't that you did a podcast episode of that?
And it didn't come out to very many. It's certainly nowhere near enough. So I basically said to everyone, come on, let's just play a bit more often. So we did get it up a bit more frequently, which is great. COVID has got in the way, of course. But I guess we probably play more now because we play online. Previously, we hadn't really played online. We tried playing online before. I hadn't really gotten on with it, frankly. And it's I guess if there is a silver lining coming out of this whole pandemic situation, it's me sort of rediscovering actually how much fun role playing over Zoom or whatever platform you want to use can actually be. And I have been really enjoying it. So there is some small silver lining in this whole horrible situation.
Absolutely. I mean, any kind of role-playing experience is better than none at all. I mean, that's the takeaway there. What do you miss about getting together with your friends and like actually? I mean, I know we can do this via video, but what do you miss the most about not being able to? I mean, besides making Matthew rage quit and pressing his buttons in person.
It's probably easier to make him rage quit online, actually.
Yeah, probably.
But I guess it's just the whole social thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, a huge part of role playing, I think, for all of us, is the social element of it. It's being around a table with people that you love and you care about and you enjoy being with, participating in a collaborative hobby that you all love. And I think both of those are equally important. The hobby and the being with people, or maybe being with the people is more important. But if the hobby brings us together, then that's brilliant. And it is just different. The vibe is different, isn't it? You get all those non-verbal cues. Thank you, Tom.
Tom, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. Tom says, love both VCG and Effekt podcast. Thank you for the hours of entertainment and great content. Thank you, Tom. I really appreciate that.
But yeah, I think you get all those non-verbal cues, don't you, when you're actually in the same room as somebody. So you lose some of that when you're talking over the internet, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
It's just such a great way to spend an afternoon or an evening.
No, I totally agree. So you've been able, because of COVID, you've been able to focus on the AP podcast a little bit more because you've been able to get everybody online and you've kind of got that. That's a fairly new endeavor for Effekt, if I'm not mistaken.
So the AP, Matt would correct me. He's the one who set up. It's probably been the AP channel has probably been around for a year, maybe a bit less than a year. But we decided that because we had everything going out on our magazine show stream, that those people who didn't like APs might get a bit fed up with their podcast their podcast app being packed full of stuff that they don't actually want to listen to. But we've got tons of content in the can waiting to be edited for actual plays. So we've got all of our Destroyer of Worlds.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Play test, which is job on me to edit. We've got so there's more Forbidden Lands coming. Matthew and I have been working on a Year Zero hack for a Western game called Tales of the Old West, which we've been running playtests, and I've got quite a lot of stuff in there that might be worth putting out as actual play as well. So we've actually got loads of content. We just got to get around to editing it and putting it out, which is the problem.
Which and that's one thing I'll kind of emphasize to folks that tune in. It's easy to see the content like as you view it on whatever platform or listen to it on a podcast. There is a lot of time and effort that gets put in, after the fact to make these, or even before, there's just different things that you have to do to make sure that, you have a good viewing experience or listening experience. And it does seem like you said, when you first start out, the first couple episodes might be rough, but it's just all you kind of have to figure out what you need to do, to keep on improving over time. And some of that is just making sure that your content and your editing and your, all the stuff that you go through gets refined afterwards.
We have learned some painful lessons around things like not eating Pringles whilst you're playing. I don't know if you have Pringles in the US.
Yeah, we do have Pringles. Yeah.
They crunch rather a lot, and if you are eating them whilst we're playing, they do tend to swamp the channel that's recording. So we've had some episodes where there's just munching for about 3 or 4 minutes. I mean, okay, there's some good stuff in there, but we've got to edit out the munching.
So you're getting some requests to pull your mic closer to your mouth. I don't know what.
Sorry if I'm a bit quiet.
I don't know. They're saying the mic is not picking up as quite as well. Thank you for mentioning that to everyone.
Thank you.
Let's. So you started out with content creating and being a fan of Free League games, and you've moved on to being a freelancer for Free League now, or you actually get paid to work on their games. But this is great just in general to anybody that would like to think about like getting into the RPG industry and being part of the business, and granted, a lot of folks can't do it full time, and they kind of do it as a side gig. And this is if you're ever interested in doing that, this is a great way to kind of I'm going to use Dave as kind of a great example of how to go about it. There's many ways to go about it, but this is a great example. You become a fan of the games that you really love, and you just kind of homebrew stuff and you kind of put it out there. And Dave, how did that? Your first gig for Free League was designing the Xenomorphs, the Xenomorph stats for the Alien RPG. What? How did that go down?
Well, there's a little bit of a story. So when we started the podcast, one of our first aspirations was to go over to Sweden and interview the guys. And we did that quite early on, and so obviously we started sort of making friends with them. And when they came over for UK Games Expo last year, we were talking to them about it. We were going to help them out, and we were going to help run the stall and stuff for them. But obviously, Alien was coming out, and we were lucky enough to be taken into their confidence. We signed NDAs around it with the intention of us writing the convention scenario. So we ended up writing 3, which are the Last Hopes scenarios that some of them, I think actually all of them, have been played out on either your channel, Doug, or on the Free League YouTube, on our podcast as well. We've had some playtests, some actual plays of those as well. But in writing those, we didn't have the stats for Xenomorphs.
Right.
And this is long before Hope's Last Day was even mentioned as a possible for being in the core book, and there's a story around how that happened as well. So we so we were writing that. I had no stats for the aliens, so I emailed Thomas and just asked him, we've got some xenomorphs in this. We're doing Hadley's Hope. Can we have the rules? An email back saying we don't have any. And so I said, shall I write some? And he said yes. And pretty much the rules that I wrote for the UK Games Expo pretty much became the rules that are in the core book right now. They got refined a little bit. Okay, I'm just reading a message from Matt about if you're using your headphones, you could try turning off the auto noise management in StreamYard. I don't know how to do that. But,
okay, that's fine.
I can try changing the microphone if that will help.
Yeah, why don't you try that? Try doing that just real quick.
Yeah. And I'll come back.
I was surprised that when they did the cinematic, when they offered the pre-orders for the Alien RPG, that the cinematic scenario didn't have xenomorphs in it, and I'm sure they did that intentionally.
Yes, so. Absolutely. So, are you hearing me still? Is that better?
That's much better. Much better.
Good old Snowball. Rely on the little Snowball device that was through my Pro. Right. Yeah. So so that I think that took some people by surprise, but it was, I think, a calculated move on Free League's part and Drew's part to do something a bit different and to shake things up a little bit. So when it came to doing a Hadley's Hope scenario for the convention, we had no aliens. So we went and produced that. I was writing them, and I was a bit concerned that I was making them too dangerous, too evil, too difficult to defeat. And I raised my concerns with Thomas, and he said, "Don't worry, make them a little more badass," was his comment.
Really?
So I went, okay, that sounds like an instruction to me. And yeah, the Xenomorphs were born. I've said it before on something, so apologies to all those people who've been killed by a head bite. That's kind of my fault. Although, I mean, whoever wrote them would have head bites in.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so it was kind of a given. But so that was brilliant.
RJ Jackson says Xeno rules are very interesting. They are very different than the PC rules, but they are good.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I can't take credit for the signature attack approach. That was Free League's. They had that in Forbidden Lands before Alien, so that certainly wasn't my innovation. That was Thomas's and Free League's. But within that, the attacks and stuff were done by me.
Nice.
So that was brilliant, and we loved doing that. We loved playing those games. We had a real blast. And then a couple of months later, we got a message from Thomas asking whether we would be able to turn one of the last Hope scenarios into the core book scenario, because they were running out of space. The Chariots of the Gods was supposed to be the core book scenario in the first plan.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And because there was so much content and so much goodness they wanted to put into the core book, they were beginning to run out of space. And they'd said before that they have a limit. They don't want books to go over a certain size. When a book gets too big, it can get too unwieldy, certainly for a core book.
Yeah.
And they were sticking to that philosophy very closely. And I'm very pleased that they did, because they then came back. They selected one of the three scenarios that Matt and I had written, and then the majority of the work after that was on me for, as Matt would say, typing up. But the reason my name's first in the credits is because I did most of the work. But no, this was these three scenarios are ones that Matt and I dreamt up together,
Nice.
And it was a lot of fun working with him on them. But again, it was kind of being in the right place at the right time, having built a trusting relationship with Thomas and the other guys at Free League, that obviously they felt that it was good enough, and it was they had confidence enough in us to produce something that was going to be worthy of being in their book, which is a huge, immensely flattering. And as you said at the start, led to mine and Matthew's first professional gaming writing credit,
which is
like,
and to be honest with you, your first gaming writing credit is also an award-winning, a gold Annie award-winning project. So what is that like? That's crazy.
Imagine that. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I do say to people if they ask, yes, I'm an award-winning writer, slightly tongue-in-cheek, because I only, Matthew and I only wrote a teeny bit of that game, and obviously so much of that credit goes to Thomas and Drew and everybody else who worked on it.
Who's Drew? I don't
know. Some guy, who thinks he knows a bit about Alien, doesn't he? But
Drew's I always love having Drew on.
But the very fact that we had the opportunity and were given the opportunity to contribute, even in a relatively small way, wow, dream come true, frankly, for me, completely.
So now we've got RJ. Let's see here, T-Body asks, I got a copy of Destroyer of Worlds a few days ago and can't wait to run it. You had your hands in that project as well, if I'm not mistaken.
I did, yes. Fairly late on in the process, Thomas asked me to have a look at it and give it an edit. I think on the grounds that he and Drew had been working on it for such a long time and were so immersed in it that you get to the point where you can't see the wood for the trees, and actually having a fresh set of eyes coming at it for the first time can see things that you can't, even though you're much more familiar with the text.
Sure. Yeah.
So again, that was brilliant. I was delighted to get that opportunity. Went through it and came up with a few suggestions. There were, the core of the scenario is kind of epic. Drew's vision and Thomas's vision with that. For those people who haven't played it yet, you're in for a treat. It is a great scenario. Get ready to get hurt as well, I guess.
Plus, they've kind of added a few little rules to a couple little mechanic twists to kind of make it a little bit more like there's a card. What's the word I'm talking?
So they have story cards.
Yes, that's what they're called. Yeah.
So it's a slight twist on the story point idea, but I think the key benefit from that is there are twists in the plot for some of the characters, and there are things that could happen to any of the characters. And when those things happen, or when those plot twists occur, the relevant player will get the card. They will be able to see what's on it. Then if they role play it sufficiently well, in the same way that if you role play your agenda in the right way, you get a story point. If you role play that story card, you then get you get bonus, you get story points out of it. So it's a nice little innovation to add to the totality of the game. But I was also really lucky. So with the edit, there are certain things I suggested that might need a little bit of a change, and Thomas invited me to write those changes, which was great.
Nice.
So yeah, it was brilliant. It was a great opportunity to do it. We then got the chance to play test it, and there was quite a lot that came out of the play test, which was able to help inform the editing work I was doing, which was really good.
Nice.
And there were one or two changes that, obviously Thomas is the boss, obviously.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we know that, yeah.
And there's been a couple of occasions where I've advocated for something in a particular line, or a particular solution or addition of something, and he hasn't realized that actually I'm right and has chosen a different view. but yeah, that's all part of the creative process, and it's great. There was one thing in particular on the aliens. I actually made the acid splash mechanic quite a bit more dangerous than it is.
Really? Okay.
In that the burn of the acid would decay slower in my original version, whereas in the game as it is, the amount of acid damage dice that you get is halved each round. So initially I had that more dangerous, and Thomas changed it. and I kind of disagreed, and I made my case, and he stuck with his decision. And in hindsight, I hate to say it, but he was right.
Yeah.
Damn him. It's
he has been working with his Year Zero engine for a little while longer.
He does know a little bit about making a good game, doesn't he? Yeah. But that's their kind of creative process, which is such a lot of fun when you're working with such great people as Thomas and Drew, that you can throw up stuff and have a debate about it, and then obviously Thomas gets the final call. But there is a live discussion about it, which is great.
Let's get to some of these questions that are in the chat. RJ Jackson says, so out of curiosity, what happens if you roll the same attack twice in a row? Example, entrancing gaze or the grapple?
I would just play it that way.
Okay.
I think there have been occasions, and I get that there's a potential issue that if you roll the same number over and over and over and over again, as unlikely as that may be, it's not impossible. That might come across as a bit weird or a bit odd.
Right.
I think one of the things that I really love about the way the signature attacks work is they're so unpredictable. So I've had occasions in games where there's been a Xenomorph kind of on the other side of a bulkhead with a window, and they can see it. And I roll the attack to see what it tries to do to the door, and it has a hiss. So it's a lovely thing about the alien kind of not even bothering to knock the door down quickly because he knows they're not going to escape. So he just looks through the window and hisses at them, kind of promising, I'm coming to get you. So I think there's, with a bit of sort of imaginative GMing, I think you can get around some of those things.
Sure.
Also, I think it means that if there's a player who is kind of at the moment of death, the alien is on him and he knows or she knows that their time is up, that roll might still reprieve them.
Okay.
The alien might decide to hiss at them or play with them rather than instantly kill them. And that might give them one extra chance or another 20 seconds of hope that they're going to get out of it alive before they're obviously inevitably eviscerated.
Right.
But I love that. I love that randomness. And
I do too. Yeah.
And the unpredictability of the alien, because they are so alien. How do you know? Why would they react like you? Well, they wouldn't. They're aliens.
Exactly. Yeah, I love it.
But I guess for a GM though, it's I always roll the signature attacks in the open, or actually I try and get the players. If an alien is doing a signature attack on a player, I get the player to roll it.
Yeah, we've experienced that on the show a few times.
I mean, that heightens the tension. It does heighten the risk that someone's going to be killed off there and then. But a lot of GMs I know like to roll these things behind the screen, which is fine. And if you're getting the same dice roll all the time behind the screen, feel free to nerf it and just choose the one you want.
Plus, you can't if you have your players roll, they can't blame the GM for the bad things that happen.
Yeah, indeed. That's the big bonus of getting the players to roll it. Yeah, I do give them the option though. I don't force them to roll it. It's up to them. If they want to roll it, great. If they want me to roll it, that's fine.
Electric Boogaloo asks, when you designed the Xenomorphs versus the Neo in the RPG, were there any clear differences between them that you wanted to emphasize? That's a great question, by the way.
It is a great question. Yeah, absolutely. So I think the key thing for me was trying to reflect what I kind of think the Xenomorphs' motivation, deep down, instinctive motivation is going to be. So I think the Neomorphs are a bit more animalistic and a bit more kind of instinctively violent, whereas the violence from a Xenomorph is focused on a particular outcome, and that outcome is protecting the queen or expanding the hive or capturing somebody and overmorphing them or leaving them for a facehugger. So I think certainly as you go up the stages of the Xenomorph, there's more and more stuff which is about protecting the queen. So I was trying that's the kind of thing I was trying to bring out in the Xenomorph rules, that yes, they are going to be violent. Yes, they are going to do horrible stuff. But actually, there's a reason behind it. They're not just doing it because they are evil, psychopathic individuals that want to do horrible things to people. There's a reason for it. A bit like in nature. So when wasps lay eggs in other creatures that are alive, they're not doing it to be nasty to that creature. They're doing it because they are indifferent to that creature's suffering. Exactly. And in doing that, they then propagate the species. And I kind of see the xenomorphs in the same light.
Nice. Let's see here. Oh, Matthew wants to point out the fact that he was writing a PhD at the time of while you were working on the Alien core book. So
that's been his excuse for about 7 years. I can't do it because I'm writing my PhD.
So I just got this little thing going on, called this PhD. It's not.
It's a tired old excuse, man. Just come on, Matt, come up with a new one, mate. But yes, he was. That's fair enough. Yes.
Matt asks, any advice for a first-time GM running a game? I know Matthew commented that you've actually have an episode on your podcast that kind of deals with running. I know. I think it was an episode of, especially if you're going to run Alien. It's a great episode to kind of how to kind of prep yourself to run the Alien RPG.
Yeah, I mean, my key 2 bits of advice to any GM is don't worry and have fun. Yeah. Because if you're with a group of friends, you're not under the spotlight to create a great experience for them. You're creating a setting for them to have a great experience within. Having that great experience is equally their responsibility as it is yours. You run the game to have fun, and if you're not having as much fun as your players are, it's not right. Okay. So all those things are really important. Sure. In running Alien, if kind of remember it's a horror game. Remember, horror isn't instantly about violence and about being torn limb from limb. It's about the anticipation of the horror. It's about what's hiding in the shadows. It's about hearing that noise behind you and not knowing what it is. It's all those things. So build the tension. In terms of the mechanics of the game, be wary of stress. If stress gets too high, it quickly runs out of control, and you can easily get a feedback loop amongst the players, and it then starts to take away the tension because it can become a bit comical, or not laughable is the wrong word, but it can become a bit dispiriting to the players where they've got so much stress. Sure. That they're never going to be able to do anything. Sometimes that's the player's fault. So if the players are insisting on pushing all the time, even though they know it's going to build their stress and they know the consequences, then actually, hard luck on them. It's their own silly fault.
Exactly.
So I think the very first time I ran Alien, I made the mistake of putting in too much narrative stress. So I had things happen early on that the players witnessed if they came across them that gave them a point of stress straight away. Now, you can do that a little bit in a game. That's fine. But if you do it too much and suddenly your players are loaded with 3 or 4 stress each, they start pushing rolls, then they're on 5 stress, 6 stress, boom, you're straight into exponential stress and all the trouble that brings. So throw in the odd bit of narrative stress, but just be careful with it. And if they're building up too much stress, allow them an opportunity to release some of it. Give them 10 minutes, 20 minutes in game to find somewhere safe to stop and shift a couple of points just to bring the balance down a bit.
Yeah, I love how that stress mechanic it really does give the game momentum. It's like and it's a GM momentum, I don't know, throttle, I guess is just, you can either lay on it or lay off of it, and depending on how your players are playing.
It's a great mechanic, and so many of the push mechanics in Free League games do this really well. But I think stress is so good because they basically give you something whilst taking something away, and stress is perfect for that. Sure. Absolutely perfect, because it's giving you something, but the same thing it's giving you is potentially taking something away. It's beautifully done. It's a great mechanic.
Let's see here. RJ Jackson asked. This is a good question. That's actually I get asked a lot, and we'll say, would you ever consider designing the Predator as well in the Alien universe? And what ideas would you have about it if you were going to design the Predator for the Alien universe? I know I've talked to, whenever I have Drew on, someone always seems to ask this question, and Drew's like, you see, it's not really part of the Alien. Like he gives some sort of IP consultant answer that, and I'm just like, but Drew, come on, if you really wanted to design it, you could design it. Like, come on, like
So, the first thing I was going to say was I've already got in trouble with Drew at least once for being with flagrant disregard for the canon that applies to this universe. At least once, if not 2 or 3 times. And so the official line is I would never countenance doing a Predator for this game before Drew starts frothing at the mouth and unfriending me on Facebook and all the losing my phone number and all that kind of stuff.
At least you get to call him Drew. I still have to call him Andrew.
Well, you are his agent after all.
That's
there has to be some formality. So no, well, I'll be entirely honest. I haven't really given it a lot of thought, but clearly, in anyone's individual game, the canon is what you want it to be. So don't worry about what the canon of the official game is. Don't matter. Your game is your game. Your universe is your universe. If you want thousands of predators in it, great, crack on. If you want Jabba the Hutt in it, great, crack on. Do what you like. I just kind of turning my brain towards a Predator now. I think you would want to have maybe 2 or 3 different signature attack tables, depending on what kind of thing they were going to do.
Sure.
Would you want to do something slightly different because maybe they are more like us in terms of motivation than the Xenomorph would be? Would you want to give the GM a bit more discretion? So
you probably should.
So either you could do your tables for the trident and for the shoulder blaster, whatever you call it, and all the rest of it.
Yep.
And then you could then allow the GM just to choose off that table. Or if you wanted to be a bit more crunchy about it, and I think I do try and be as simple as Thomas wants me to be, but I my brain likes a bit of crunch once in a while. You could do a table, a signature attack table for each weapon, and just choose 2 or 3 of them. Depending upon what the predator's intention is. So if the predator's intention is capture, you could have a signature attack table that is about, let's say with a shoulder-mounted missile thing, it could be about shooting someone's leg off so they can't run away. Or then if they wanted to kill, then it could be obviously just shoot to kill kind of thing. So there might be something in that, maybe. Perhaps if you wanted to maintain the random element of the signature attack tables, rather than just get the GM to choose. And I think that's one of the beauties of the signature attack table is, the GM, can let the dice decide what happens. And I like the dice deciding what happens. That might be an idea.
I will mention that I think someone actually created a Predator homebrew stats and they posted it on the Alien, the Free League Alien RPG Facebook group. There's a great community on there, and if you if you're a Facebook user and you aren't a member of that Facebook group, you should definitely join that group because it's just it's just a great group of people. Like they're just gamers and they love sharing ideas. They get excited about about the Alien IP, and they get excited about playing sessions of Alien, and it's just a great group of folks on there. But there are a few homebrews that folks have posted on there, and you might find something there too. So
there's a really good Alien Discord group as well. Which
yes,
has got
there is too.
A lot of resources and assets. So there's bound to be something about Predators on there too.
And there's actually this really great Effekt Discord that if you contribute to their Patreon, you have access to. I just that's also out there too. But no pressure to anybody.
Feel free to come and join our little community. You'll be more than welcome. It'd be great. Yeah,
it is a great community. So let's switch gears a little bit. I think we're pretty much we got one more question from Electric Boogaloo. Following RJ's question, the Alien RPG subreddit is full of fans experimenting on the system with creatures and settings from other horror universes. Thoughts about expanding the system to other RPG or other IPs?
Well, yeah. So I actually this is a thought that I had.
This is not any official Free League.
No.
This is just us kind of just before anybody listens to this and is like, oh, well, I heard Dave's designing such and such for. This is just like a dream. Like this is what we would love to see this rule set.
I've long loved the loved the idea, although I haven't really found the perfect setting of post-apocalyptic role playing.
Okay.
And I was thinking about Twilight 2000, which is obviously just been kickstarted as maybe a system I could do that in. But also, I think the Alien RPG system would be very good for running something like The Walking Dead, which is the kind of game I would like to run, kind of game I'd like to play in, actually.
I would too.
But I think that would work really nice. Again, the stress mechanic works beautifully for that.
And you could almost do like I don't know. There should be like, I wonder if you could take like a random roll table for like the zombie reactions. Or not zombie, walker reactions. Like give them because they're just kind of they're almost like a hive mind as well too.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely. I think that would work really well. The idea of a signature table for how the zombie, how the walkers or the biters, or whatever series you watch when they find someone new doesn't call them walkers. Yeah, that worked really nicely.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've heard people talking about you could do all sorts. I mean, there's been a lot of conversation about Blade Runner as an IP that people would like to get involved with. Maybe stress isn't the best mechanic for Blade Runner if you're going for a Blade Runner kind of feel, but it's in terms of look and feel, it's so close to Alien that it might be then it might work quite well in that context.
Sure. I mean, there's a ton of sci-fi horror out there that you could probably just kind of, if you gave it a little bit of effort, you could probably take those rules and kind of apply it to almost any of those IPs that are out there. Let's talk a little bit. Let's switch gears a little bit before we get too late. Let's talk a little bit about this Free League showcase. The Free League showcase is coming up this weekend. It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday on the Free League YouTube channel. It's exclusive. Well, it's on the Free League YouTube channel, and we'll be simulcasting a few of the sessions here on VCG that I'll be a part of. And Dave, you're going to be part of it.
I am, absolutely. Yeah, on Saturday, I'm going to be running a Alien one-act cinematic called Home Sweet Home, which is a scenario that I wrote for Free League for the convention scene this year. Obviously, the conventions didn't really happen. There have been we have done a AP of a playtest of Home Sweet Home and a YouTube thing, but the scenario that we'll be running this weekend is a bit different. It's changed a little bit. So, tune in. It's intended to try and show a little bit what else can Alien RPG be turned to in terms of a one-act cinematic game. And as I said, it's called Home Sweet Home. It is 8:30 British summertime, which I think is 3:30 over Eastern Standard Time. Yep. Come along. 5 players will come along and see how they can cope with what's thrown at them.
I'll be behind the scenes, producing and everything. But we'll, I'm really excited to hear what this scenario is all about. How long have you been working on this? How long did you work on Home Sweet Home?
Oh, well, I originally wrote it for UK Games Expo, which was supposed to be at the end of May. So it was first written. Well, actually, it was first written earlier than that, because one of the playtests was the last time I met my local group here in the UK, before we had to isolate for the pandemic. So that was in March. So it was first written then. It's been refined a little bit, changed a little bit, hopefully improved. A couple of bits added, a couple of bits taken out. But it's a one-act cinematic scenario like Hope's Last Day. So it kind of throws you straight into the action, because we don't have that long.
Right.
We've got a 3-hour slot to run the game in, and sadly, you know better than anyone, Doug, that I'm not very good at sticking to time.
Well, I'm going to hold you to it, because we've got other actual plays after you. So we've got so
I don't have the luxury of running into the late hours here in the UK.
You can probably go over a little bit, but we'll have to kind of depends on.
We'll work to bring it in 3 hours. Yeah,
nice. Now Matthew's going to be on Friday night.
He is, yeah. So Matthew, whilst I was writing Home Sweet Home for Alien, Matthew was writing a Versen scenario for the new Nordic horror game that came out this year from Free League, Versen, and that's called Summer in December. And he'll be running that, I think, at the same time, 8:30 on Friday evening.
Yes.
For the showcase, and that's a really good little scenario. I've had a look at it, and it really hits the Versen vibe really nicely. It's got some really nice touches, and Versen as a game is there's something very special about it in the way it's it's focusing on Nordic horror, but it's not horror quite in the same way as Alien would be horror. So It's kind of Nordic folk tales or Nordic fairy tales, which we all listen to fairy tales as kids. If you actually stop to think about them, some of them are pretty bloody horrible. It's that kind of vibe, which is really cool, and the scenario is great. So I encourage anyone and everyone who's the least bit interested to tune in on Friday and listen to Matt running Summer in December.
So Michael Leavenworth, who's an amazing artist and has worked on some really big projects, has a question for you, Dave. Let's see here. Any tips for creating an engaging long-term Alien RPG campaign where you can mitigate player metagaming with movie knowledge and keep them grounded in story, but still have the same risk stakes of the one-offs, cat and mouse?
Yeah. Okay. So I had been running an Alien sort of colony campaign, and I think we're also used now to the cinematics and the short term, you're going to die quickly, hard hitting nature of those. I think you have to dial back for a campaign, in that the threats that are out there, like the monsters, like the Xenomorphs, have to be hinted at. You also, I think, have to make it clear to your players, and I think this is probably applies to lots of different IPs, but maybe particularly to Alien, that as the GM, this is your universe, and whilst they might know a lot of stuff from the movies, that means nothing in your universe unless you say it does. So you need to be quite, clear about that, and I guess expect a responsibility on your players to not spoil it by metagaming. By taking knowledge that their character would not have into an encounter with something. I think in most of my experience, players are pretty good, or the players that I play with are pretty good at not doing that. So that's kind of my thoughts about the sort of the metagaming side of it. Keeping a the risk reward thing, I think you have to embed your bigger campaign in just the nastiness of everyday life. So what people are doing to each other, what, you know, people are scamming each other. You've got the corporations who are exploiting the little people. You've got all those kind of things that are there in the Alien game and in the Alien universe, but you know, in the movies they are referenced, but they don't take center stage, because the center stage is surviving the aliens.
Right.
So and I think it's up to you as a GM whether you want your campaign arc to be about, you know, the engineers or the Xenomorphs or the Draconis 26 strain. And it might be that it's not. It could be something, could just be that you've got some characters who want to make a good life on a new colony, and the troubles and problems that you've got in actually setting up and living on a new planet. So I think you've got all that. You can decide for yourself if you want to play in the meta plot of Weyland-Yutani and the Xenomorphs, or yeah. I think one thing that might be quite a good way of almost just shaking it up straight away is set your campaign in the UPP. Say, have your players as UPP people, right, rather than United Americas, or make them Three World Empire, make them Japanese or something, just to shake it up a bit, so you get away from the American UA colonial marine approach that everyone is totally familiar with, and actually you just give it a twist, and maybe that might be enough just to shake your players out of that metagaming sense a little bit.
Okay. Nice. Excellent.
Hope that helps.
Yeah, I'm sure. Michael, let us know if that helped at all. Michael works on some very big IPs, and he works for a very popular studio. That Matthew's asking if he draws cowboys.
Good question, Matt.
Yeah, Michael is very, very talented gentleman. Yep, and Michael says brilliant.
Cool, brilliant. Thank you. But yeah, if you do draw cowboys, let us know.
I'm sure. Yeah, we'll chat a little after the session.
Cool.
So while I had Drew on for GraniteCon at home over the weekend, he announced that he was working on or mentioned, I think it's already been kind of announced, although probably not officially, that he's working on a colonial marine book, campaign book. Is that anything that you're hoping, or can you say if that's anything that you'll be, kind of dabbling with, before it gets published?
Well, yes and no. So Thomas has said he's quite keen for me to sort of help out editing some of Drew's stuff on Alien, because he thinks that our two approaches complement each other really quite well.
Nice.
Because we're sort of quite different in our approach. I haven't been approached to work on the Colonial Marine supplement yet, so that may or may not come off. But I think Thomas was sufficiently pleased with what we did with Destroyer that hopefully he'll come back and ask me to do some more. Nice. I'm available.
Nice.
But yeah, so I sincerely hope so. But nothing officially yet. I haven't been commissioned to do anything on that yet. So
okay, excellent. One question that I have, and this is a Doug question. Can you help me, since your wife is Swedish, and since I've been called out on this mercilessly on various podcasts and on the radio show and everything? How do you pronounce
Morkborg?
Yes, because it's spelled Morkborg.
It's not, I know. Actually.
So I'm just letting folks know. I have the creators of the game on. I think it's Saturday, or maybe it's Saturday. They're coming on it, and we're doing a little AMA and chatting. And
nice.
My biggest fear now that everybody is giving me such a hard time about this, now my biggest fear is to actually mispronunciate it in front of them.
Yeah. Okay. So I can give you some advice.
Mhm.
Number one, don't ever expect to pronounce it correctly, because
Okay.
if you're not Swedish, you won't get the second word right. I'm going to have a go in a moment, but
Okay. Okay.
the first word is pronounced Merk.
Merc.
So
Okay, I got that one right.
it's my wife's surname, so I
Okay.
should get that one right. So it's pronounced Merk. The second word is pronounced something like Boya,
Boye. Boye.
something like that. But I think the problem is, if you don't grow up as a little child in Sweden, your the way your mouth works, the way your tongue and the way you pronounce words is different. So they have a way of rolling that R's that is just impossible. I can't do it. I've tried. And Jenny, my wife, just gives me a hard time about it all the time, because she says, just go, ugh, and then she makes this lovely noise. But when I do it, I make that noise. So it's just like bonkers.
It's all right.
Yeah. So one, don't beat yourself up because you'll never get it right. But two, yeah, I don't think the Swedes will be offended by getting it wrong. That's for sure.
I'll tell you, whenever I have Matthias or Thomas on the show, I always, like, before we go live, I always preface the live stream with, guys, I know I'm going to mispronounce things. I'm so sorry. I apologize in advance.
Yeah.
And at this point, they've been on so many times that they're just like, yeah, we know. Just don't worry about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know, and when we were at UK Games Expo, I said something about us, this crazy American with his pronunciations. I apologize for this weekend. While we were over at the UK
in
Games
advance,
Expo, or not UK Games Expo, but Gamma Expo.
Yeah,
but yeah.
Yeah, so don't worry. Yeah,
okay.
You won't get it. You won't get it right. But I think they do. If you give it a go, and you'll think it sounds really good, but to the Swedes it'll sound awful. Yeah. And they will enjoy it because they'll laugh at you without letting you on to the fact that they're laughing at you for making it. So you'll give them a bit of entertainment anyway, so it's fine. That's
they're so nice, Thomas, Matthias. Yeah. They're so nice, and I'm sure the guys behind Merk Borge. See, now I feel like the Swedish chef, and I'm like mocking them.
So Merk is fine.
Merk
is
okay.
Just Merk.
Merk.
Oh, you would do it with a little rolling of the R, but I can't do the rolling of the R.
All right.
Merk is close enough. Yeah. And
right.
Boya.
I think that's rough. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So the thing is, Doug, you're asking the wrong person because I can't pronounce it correctly either. So
well, when your wife drops off another beer, you gotta finish that beer and drop. Can you have her give me pronunciation lessons?
I can. It won't help.
All right.
She's not a very good teacher. She gets very frustrated with her students when they can't do the rolling of the R's. So yeah.
No,
it'll be good.
I'm really excited for this weekend. I'm very excited for all that you're doing. Now you also have some other projects that you are kind of working on behind the scenes that you've mentioned with like you said, you've got your own Year Zero engine game that you're designing, and is that something that you're going to put out on the Free League workshop? And
so quite how we will sort of put it out ultimately, we're not entirely sure yet, but we're quite a long way through. So we've got it's called Tales of the Old West. It's a warts and all, I think, is the intention, recreation of the Wild West. We've got no supernatural elements to it. This is just people doing bad things to other people and trying to survive in the Wild West and thrive and deal with the environment and everything else. It's, I guess, for us, the key thing for us is because Matt and I are two white boys in our 50s, middle class, English, no bugger all about the Wild West, frankly, other than the stuff that we've researched. Mm-hmm. And we are really keen to not only do justice to all the elements of the Wild West, but also not to do an injustice to any of it.
Sure.
So we are really lucky to have a one of our patrons, a guy called Saul, is a American of Mexican descent. So he's already taken our text, had a look at it from his sort of cultural point of view, and has given us lots of pointers to try and help us get that sort of Mexican element of the West in the right place. Obviously, you've got the whole Native American side of it that we're going to want to look into. But we want to create a game that's fun, but we want to create a game that is not just going to perpetuate some of those Wild West stereotypes that the Indians are the bad guys. They've got the black guy who's loyal. All those kind of ridiculous stereotypes that just don't reflect the variety and the diversity of the West at the time. Absolutely. and the troubles that a lot of these people faced. So we want to create something that rings at least vaguely true whilst having a game that's fun to play.
I love it.
So
awesome.
So we are play testing now. We are on sort of second, maybe third version. We're not a long way actually from getting it to a point where we'll need to decide how we take it forward in a bit more more properly.
Wasn't quite sure if you had plans to kickstart that and publish it on your own, or if you were just thinking of just doing it, putting it through the Free League workshop and putting it out that way.
So don't know yet. So the answer is don't know. We've been very lucky that certainly a while ago we've had some advice off some of the Free League guys about how to do stuff, and we'll take their advice again about what's the best way of doing it. But we may well end up kickstarting it if that's the best way of doing it. I think that would be my preference.
Sure.
But we've never done a Kickstarter before. We will have to learn a lot to get to that point. So yes, we have absolute aspiration to do that, but Matt and I have got a lot to learn first.
Yeah. and you have a lot of you've got a lot of stuff going on as well.
Yeah,
so it's just a matter of you don't want to rush it as well. And the other thing that when you mentioned that some of the Free League guys, there's some of the Free League folks have given you advice. That's one thing that I'm going to tell folks just in general, and I've mentioned this before. The RPG industry in general is very supportive of each other. Like there's most publishers in general don't look at each other as competition. They look at it as colleagues, and they want to see everybody succeed. This is even though role-playing games are a big, a lot more prevalent now than they have been, it's still a niche audience and it's still a niche market. And so a lot of folks in this is 99% of the time with this industry, and this is one thing that I love about the RPG industry is that everybody's just very, very supportive and they want to see people succeed, and when you have a passion like Dave and Matthew do about playing games and designing games and just being a part of it, people usually gather around that and want to help those folks. So that's kind of just one thing I wanted to mention before we got too long here.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly.
So, all right, I think that's about it. We went over a little bit over our hour that I was planning on doing this talk, Dave. But I appreciate you giving your time and coming on and talking about everything you've got going on. If folks
pleasure.
If folks want more Dave in their lives, where should they go?
Effektpodcast.org. Effektap.org. Those are our two channels. We have a YouTube channel. We are currently running a Coriolis campaign on a Monday night, 8 to 8:30 BST. If you're interested to come along, they last about an hour and a half most Mondays, and we're going through the Mercy of the Icons campaign in Coriolis, which is great fun. I can also be found on my blog, which is rpggods.org. It's a bit out of date because I haven't had much time to do stuff on it, but I've got a stack of stuff that will suddenly release. So go and have a look at what's on there. And we're on Facebook as the Coriolis Effekt. Thank you, Michael. That's nice. Thank you. And then we and the usual social medias, but yeah, come and listen. And we obviously have the Patreon if you wish to join us. I think the lowest level is $2 a month, and you get access to our lovely community. We have just a little plug. We are going to be running our own Effekt podcast convention, which is for patrons only, in the middle week of October. We did one right at the beginning of the lockdown, which we kind of inappropriately called COVID Con back in the day. This one is called Connect, spelled with a K, Matthew's idea.
Sure.
And yeah, so we're going to be running a load of games over that weekend, which I think is 16th, 17th we're planning on. So if anybody's interested in joining that, then come along to the Patreon and join the community. And we've got about 40 people in there now. So it's not huge by the measure of others, but it's a great community. We've got lots of lovely, wonderful people in there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, come along, please. It'd be great to see you. Thank you, Doug.
I will also vouch in that there's just a great group of individuals on that Discord on that Discord channel, and yeah, everybody. Every time I've popped in, everybody's very, very welcoming, very, very, very nice. All right, folks, I'm going to tell you, if you like this session with Dave, please hit that like button down below. Share it with the others if you know that are interested in either getting into the RPG industry and content creating and the alien RPG. Just share it with friends that you think would be interested in this. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, please hit that subscribe button. I really appreciate it. You can also hit that little bell notification that'll alert you every single time we go live or upload new content. We really, really appreciate our YouTube community here on VCG. And if you're listening to this on the podcast and the audio podcast, thank you so much. And feel free to write us and subscribe to that platform as well. All right. That's going to do it for this session. Thank you so much. Be safe, be well, and remember, winning shouldn't be the only victory condition when you get to the table. We'll see you next time. Bye now.
Bye.